Hi there. Welcome to Productivi-Tree. I'm Santi Tacoronte, and I'm here to help you succeed and be happier. In each episode, we'll explore new ways to work smarter, manage your time better, and grow as a person. We'll share fresh ideas, find ways to improve, and help you become your best self at work, in life. Join me as we learn and grow together on Productivi-Tree. I have assessed over 500 executives on their productivity, and the top 10 all have something in common. They score high across 4 specific vectors: efficiency, effectiveness, ownership, and well-being. When these 4 align, you just don't lead better. You create compounding advantages that separate exceptional leaders from good ones. Take my 5-minute free assessment, and you will see exactly how you compare. Most leaders are shocked by what they discover. Find out where you stand at the link below. From corporate boardrooms to startup battlefields, Team BT has always been obsessed with one question: how can teams turn ambition into real, measurable impact? After 2 decades driving transformation at PwC, IBM, Deloitte, and Red Hat, Tim co-founded Stellafy, a revolutionary platform putting world-class coaching right in every team's pocket. He's tearing down outdated consulting models and rebuilding them around empowerment, helping teams not just to track goals, but truly execute strategy. A best-selling author of DevOps Culture and Practice, a marathon runner, and a relentless advocate for progress, Tim is living proof that with the right mindset, every team can run farther and faster than they ever imagined. Tim, welcome to Productivi-Tree.
Thank you, Santiago. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Tim, you say traditional consulting is broken. When did that first click for you? When is the moment you realize that, well, we can't keep doing this way?
Oh, I have thought this for most of my career, which is about 25 years old now. So I have worked for big 4 consultants like PwC and Deloitte and IBM. I've worked for a few times. And I've worked for small niche boutique consulting companies as well. And I've always seen inefficiencies, frustrations, areas where I just think there must be a better way of doing this. There should be a better way. There has to be a better way. And I probably got that first niggle in the early 2000s where I was working on huge consulting projects, taking years and years and years to deliver any value to go live, and costing millions a day. These were huge. And I just remember thinking back then, this has got to be a better way of being valuable, of showing value. And that was the first itch I got way back in the early 2000s. And I've been on a journey ever since to try and optimize and improve and find better ways.
So how do you see consultancy evolving? Where do you think, or how do you think consultancy could get better?
I think the number one thing is to have a much bigger shared focus on outcomes. I think a lot of consulting is still heavily focused on outputs, so deliverables, documents and frameworks and applications and systems, and it gets away from the problem, the original problem that we're trying to solve, or the opportunity we're trying to grasp. I think a lot of consulting models, the engagement models, are set up for inefficiency. You know, the things like time and materials. You're selling time, and already from the moment that engagement's put in place, it's creating negative behaviors. If you think about it, the nature of a time and materials engagement, it's actually in the interest of the consultant to go slower. It's in the interest of the consultant to find more work to do, to make themselves sticky, to create busy, to make themselves really busy because they get more money for it. And I just think that's wrong, because it's taking the focus away on the outcome. So I think consulting of the future has got to be much more oriented and anchored around the outcomes, and should have a much tighter feedback loop to see if we're making progress toward those outcomes. And in our current day and age, where there's so much data, everything is so much faster in terms of being able to get feedback and to be able to respond to it, that has to enter the way of working for consulting as well.
For listeners who have never hired a consultant, how do you define the old consulting model in simple terms? And what does the new enabling model look like in contrast?
Okay, I have been a part of that old consulting model. I have been that consultant for many years, where effectively it is a client organization hiring in some expertise that they don't have in-house, or bringing a third-party organization in to deliver some kind of outcome that they are not able to do themselves, or they don't want to do themselves. They want to, they see it as very risky, and they basically buy the risk by paying a third party to come in and do that. And in many cases, that is a really good thing to do, because, consultants, successful consultants, good consultants, become good consultants because they've got lots and lots of experience. They've been there, they've done it, they've got lots of experiences, they've had the wounds, they've got the learnings, and they bring all of that intellectual property into the client, and therefore it stands a really good chance. I think for me, and this is one of the itches I had early on, organizations became too dependent on consultants. They couldn't live without them. Consulting, and it was good for the consultant because they became dependent upon and revenue was there. But the number of projects that I worked on early on in my career, and I heard about after we left, everything started to fall apart. And that's because we were delivering some solution. We weren't enabling the organization to learn to stand on their own 2 feet themselves. So I think the kind of consulting that I've transitioned to in the last 10 or so years has been much more around enablement. So not just delivery. I'm not a delivery consultant. I'm an enablement consultant. I am enabling high-performing organization, high-performing teams. Yes, maybe we're going to co-create something together. We're going to build something together, but I want to leave behind that capability inside the organization so that they can live on and be successful in a much more long-lived fashion. And I think that consulting organizations, their internal intellectual property is so important now. Consulting can now help bring that enablement into the organization.
You have already alluded at the misaligned incentives of consultancies and clients,
Yeah.
but is there a theme of clients looking for silver bullets instead of hardworking or building capability, as you said?
Yeah, and I think that there's a mindset there in leadership. There's a saying sometimes, nobody got fired for hiring IBM, or nobody got fired for bringing in Accenture, or whatever the big, well-known consulting organization is. It feels safe. It feels, oh, well, I'll bring in these experts and we'll put a really strong contract around them. And then, if things go wrong, and unfortunately things do go wrong with a lot of consulting contracts, and they don't deliver the expectation, then the leader sort of stands behind the contract and they, well, let's get the contract out. And sometimes the lawyers come in, and I've seen those happen quite a lot. And I think, I think it is a silver bullet. I think it's sort of it's a very transactional process. Let's bring in this organization and pay them, and they'll do the job, and then they'll leave. But organizations just aren't as simple as that, because organizations are changing all the time. The conditions are changing. There's such a need at the moment for adaptation, and to be able to respond to change, and to be able to react to feedback, and to be able to look at data points and maybe do something different this month to what we thought we were going to do last month. So that idea that, well, we've signed a consulting contract and we've asked them to come in and deliver this service, just sometimes doesn't stand up. It becomes not the right thing to do. But because they've taken that silver bullet approach, they kind of stick with it, even though it becomes clear this isn't the right thing we're doing. Yeah, but we've already agreed to do it, so let's just carry on, and well, I'm sure it'll be okay. That's where organizations end up in trouble. So yeah, I think that mindset, the silver bullet, just doesn't work. We're in a much more complex environment, and we need a much more collaborative, iterative responsiveness mindset when it comes to delivering solutions.
Hmm. Do you think some organizations like the old model because it gives leaders a shield? Like, we hired a big name consultant, so if it fails, it's not on us, it's them.
Yeah, exactly. And the finger pointing comes out, and the blame culture comes out. And then, it's not a particularly nice environment to be in. But yeah, as a leader, I think they use it as a protection, as a comfort blanket. It's a suboptimal behavior, really. If they really wanted to do the right thing for their organization, I think they would have to be, there's a braver route to doing that. And that is, let build up capability inside our organization. Let's not be dependent on a third party. We will become more valuable if we have this in-house experience. We will become more valuable if our teams can be long-lived, high-performing teams rather than, hundreds and hundreds of different suppliers coming in and doing short-term projects. So there are great, and I think I'm seeing more and more great leaders now switching to that mindset as more and more organizations become more product-centric and are seeing the value in their people and the value in investing in their people. And therefore consulting can become more about how do we help these people rather than deliver a short-term tactical fix, which is what they often were before.
Do you think consulting will struggle with more organizations moving to a product based type of work?
Yes and no. I think consultants that relied on working in a project setup and, like the idea of coming in to deliver projects and they come and they go. Organizations that are moving towards more of a product centric and a product mindset and a product operating model. There's certainly opportunity still for consultants because I think those organizations need a lot of help to get there, and therefore there's opportunities. But those consultants should realize that the end goal there is that we aren't working in projects anymore. The term project should start to be diminish. We start to not think of that, and instead of dividing up work packages into projects, we have these long-lived product teams that we start to flow the work into. And this is where, concept of really good product backlogs and product backlog refinement and program, teams of teams that are forming programs, but it's more in a product centric. It's more of a continuous delivery of work, so it never ends. And this is the way, product organizations, until you shut down products, until you turn them off, which organizations tend not to do until the very end, there's always product teams, and you're never done. You're continuously improving, you're continuously building upon, you're continuously expanding. So that kind of project mindset of defined beginning and end just starts to erode, starts to go away. So that's a mindset shift for lots of people, from leaders all the way through to the consulting organizations.
You say that measurable outcomes and OKRs are crucial but hard to get right.
Yeah.
What are the top mistakes you see teams making with OKRs and that make them fail or not be as successful as you think they will be?
Oh, gosh, there's loads. So OKRs, objectives and key results, really simple framework. We were talking before the recording, it's when you think about it, it could not get simpler. We're going to have, this is the outcome we're trying to achieve, written as an objective. And then here's some key results, which are going to tell us if we're making progress or not. I love the framework because it's so simple. I actually really love the principles behind it. The number one mistake I see made are, we write them, we get into a room together, we get on a Zoom call, we write them, and then we file them away on some shared drive, and we don't look at them again until maybe the end of the year or the end of the quarter, where there's suddenly a mad scramble to update your OKRs. The idea of the OKRs are that they are setting direction and they are giving us data feedback regularly as to whether we're making progress or not. So they should be used weekly, maybe even daily. My team that uses OKRs, it's built into our mindset now. What is the key result we're trying to move forward? So that's the number one. It just gets forgotten about and fizzled away. Other mistakes I see made, sometimes they're kind of set by a manager and delegated and cascaded. And I think that the thing about OKRs to work really well, they're owned by the team. The team write them with managers, leaders, stakeholder input, but it's a real collaborative process. We get a much better understanding as to what those indicators are that are going to tell us if we're making progress. So this idea that someone writes them and just gives them to your teams doesn't you lose a lot of that pride and ownership and motivation, and then the innovation that comes with that. And then the third one I would say is the wrong key results. I still see lots of teams just writing lots of tasks. They think, oh, here's my objective. So I'll come up with all of these tasks that we've got to do, and there are key results. And the key result is supposed to be a measure. It's supposed to be a needle, and those needle you see move week by week, day by day, maybe. It's not a thing that you tick off. They are needles that move and lots of measures. So I see the wrong key results being written all the time, and they become very binary and tick boxy. And don't get me wrong, this is where it's hard. You say writing some measures is easy. It's not. It's coming up with the right blend of measures, a mixture of effort-based measures and output-based measures, and most importantly, outcome-based measures. How are we going to know that we are actually achieving an outcome for our organization? And then how do we connect that and show that that is actually helping another part of the organization? So this is the area that I've been spending a lot of time in the last few years, really trying to get better and optimize, because I think there's huge opportunity to get high performing organizations if we can have really well written connected OKRs.
Tim, I'm gonna abuse your trust a little bit and try to get a little bit of free consultancy from you, because I want you to
Please do.
formulate an OKR for this podcast that is a well formulated and solid OKR as an example for the audience. If you would be the director of this podcast and you need to set up an OKR for this quarter, how does it look like?
Well, let's imagine it is the 1st of January 2027. Okay, we're recording this in early 2026. So let's fast forward a year. Imagine you were to write a newspaper headline for the Podcast Times about your podcast. What would you want the headline to be? What would be the thing that says, yes, we have made it. This is. How would you describe your podcast in a year's time in like a newspaper headline or a big subject line?
I will describe it as in Productivi-Tree podcast has helped more than 1 million listeners to become more productive, recover some of your time, and become happier.
I love that. Right. So already the way you describe that, if I worked for you, right, or I was in your team, if we had that on the wall, this is our outcome. You know, this podcast is going to help 1 million listeners be more productive. It's like, yeah, that's a reason to get out of bed in the morning. That I am helping people, right? And I instantly am thinking about the listeners, the viewers, the people that are consuming your content. So right now I'm thinking about those. So that is your objective. Write that into a really succinct, memorable objective that if I asked you any time in the year or anyone that ever works with you, that's what they would quote. Then I would think about, okay, how am I going to measure progress during the next year? And I like to think of trying to get a blend of leading measures and lagging measures. If we just went with that, 1 million people have told us that they are far more productive. It might be October, November, December before they all start telling us, because first of all, they've got to listen to your podcast. Then they've got to start to apply some of the learning that they've done. Then they've got to do some experiences, and then eventually they've got to feed back to you to know that you've moved those needles. I don't want to wait until November, December time to find out if those needles have moved. Okay, I want to know in the next few months that we're making progress towards that. So I start to think about some measures I can put in place that is at least telling me if I am heading towards that outcome or not. So maybe I'm going to start measuring the number of viewers. First of all, I'm going to measure the number of podcasts you put out, right? Because that's an effort estimate, right? You're in complete control of that. That's an input key result, okay? And it's very leading because you are in complete control to make that happen. You just got to get more recordings. Then I might want to start measuring some of the consumption and outputs that come from that. How many views, how many engagements. I'm taking a really kind of a marketing approach to this. So I guess what I'm getting to is we're starting to build hypotheses really early on that if you record a certain number of podcasts in particular areas, it's going to generate a certain amount of output. It's going to generate a certain amount of interest. It's going to generate a certain amount of action and behavioral change. And so if we have, say, 3, 4, 5 key results, some of them are very much input and leading in your control. And then we've got some more lagging outcome measures, key results. Then the process of the next 12 months is to experiment lots and lots and lots and to see if those hypotheses are true or not. And then to refine our approaches as not. Because then we're going to learn as we go through the year whether we are actually going to achieve our outcome of helping those million people be much more productive through your podcast and your other tools. Then during the year, we'll have lots of retrospectives, lots of learning, lots of feedback sessions so that we can slowly refine and make sure the needles keep moving. And when they don't, we start to do something about it.
Tim, if a leader is about to sign a big consulting contract, what 3 outcome-focused questions should they insist on answering, getting answers from the consultancy before they sign a single invoice? If we think outcome-based, what would you ask before signing a multi-million-dollar consultancy contract?
Okay. I don't know if it's as simple as a question and answer, but there's definitely an alignment and a validation that needs to happen. First of all, do you understand the problem we are trying to solve? In a one line, what is this? What is the problem we are trying to solve? And how will we know that we've solved it? Ideally with a measure. Okay. And this is where framework like a North Star metric can be really useful. If there's one measure and one measure only that's going to tell us that as a result of this investment of millions, we have achieved the outcome of that's associated with that investment, what is that? And the consulting company, we need to make sure that we are absolutely 100% aligned, where we just feel really confident. Yes, these people understand our context. They understand why we're investing in this, and they understand what success looks like in terms of a measure. So that would be number one. The second one would be, how are you, the consulting company, going to demonstrate value early on and regularly? So what am I trying to avoid here? I'm trying to avoid us having what I call the watermelon effect, where you present us lots of project status reports with lots of green on it and lots of words, but actually when you peel it back, things have gone wrong. So I need to know how are you going to report value? How are you going to demonstrate that the input you're putting in, the consulting services that you're providing are connected to value that we care about, we the client care about. Okay, so, and I want to know what the approach is going to be. So if the consulting company says something like, well, we're going to, put some really good OKRs in place and we're going to report on those every month, and these OKRs are going to be the client's OKRs, nothing to do with the consulting company, that would be a good answer. A warning would be when we're reporting things like on number of hours used or, number of dollars spent and things like that. They're vanity metrics. They're not actually connected to the client's value. So that would be number two. And then number three, I think I'd be looking for something around the transparency and honesty around when things are going to go wrong. If it's a multi-million pound contract, something's going to go wrong, right? So how are we going to handle change? How are we going to handle all of the things we haven't thought about? How are we going to handle all of the problems that we don't know when they're going to surface? What is our kind of governance? Sounds like a very formal word, but how are we going to work around that? And again, I would be looking for lots of feedback loops, lots of retrospectives, lots of lessons learned, and the fact that we are actually we're in a kind of a partnership, not a client supplier world, but we're in a partnership, and things are going to go wrong. But we're going to feel very safe with each other to report that, and we're going to feel safe to share when things go wrong, so that we can share these problems early. Um, if we hide behind things and say nothing goes wrong because we are the experts, we never get anything wrong, that would be a warning sign to me. Because, like I say, organizations and change is really complex. So they're probably my three things I would be pushing for, and I'm really looking for a culture, just to get a feeling of what the consultant culture is going to be like, and if that's going to be blend with the clients.
Oh, that was brilliant, Tim. I would add a fourth one. Can I say it?
Yeah, please do. Yeah, love to hear
What's
it.
going to happen when you leave?
Yeah. Okay.
Not going to
Really
be
good one.
one of the, that would be probably one of, I would have at the top, like, who's going to run this when you leave?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I was kind of working through the timeline, and I sort of hadn't even reached up to the point of just thinking about getting them in the door, but it's a really good one. In fact, I would put that as right at the top of the list, really. Yeah. And that would help with how are you going to be enabled, and how are you, the consulting company, not going to make yourselves indispensable?
Headlines a few weeks ago: consultancy, Big Four consultancy X, it's fined that many millions by country. Why? Because they'd use AI to produce all their decks.
Yeah.
Now, Tim, you blend AI with human coaching.
Yeah.
Where does AI generally make consulting more productive? And where you draw the line between, hey, this is a chat GPT generated PPT, I'm not willing to pay $500,000 for this.
Yeah, this is a really interesting area at the moment. I wrote a blog post all about that story that you referenced. It's fascinating. So uh, I think AI offers a huge amount of opportunity to consultants, not to replace them, but to help them be even better. The way my team, my coaches are using AI at the minute, my coaches are really, really experienced. Like, they have got 20, 30, 40 years of experience in the kind of consulting that we do. They have got so much stuff in their head. It's amazing. And they will always be great experts that our clients can get a lot of value from. Sometimes there's things in their heads that they just can't reach. They forget what they know, or it just just doesn't spring to mind. And I think AI can be a really good sparring partner, just to almost prompt you and remind you, especially if you prompt it with the sort of things you're thinking about. So I don't think it's, you take a pre-canned response, which has been a consulting approach for lots of organizations, where you have everything pre-canned and so on. Instead, it's about helping amplify the consultant. It's a help sort of just help them just think through things a little bit more. So I almost see it as like a pairing partner, as opposed to, a lazy, I'm going to pass the AI and it's going to do all the work for me. So I think in the execution of the services, there is a really good tool, but that's all it is. It's a tool. I think it still starts and ends with the consultant's voice, the consultant's experience, the consultant's story in particular. The storytelling, I think, is such an important part of consulting skills. And AI can just sort of provide some supplementary thinking just to nudge you in the right direction. The other one that I've been exploring recently, and this goes back to the how does the client ensure that they continue to get the value of the investment in the consulting long after the consultants leave. I think when the client is paying, huge money to get access to the consultant's brain, and all sorts of great conversations and experiences happen during the consulting engagement, AI offers a wonderful opportunity to harness that intellectual property, the thinkings, the conversations, the decisions, the discussions. And I think with digital technology at the minute, there's a great opportunity to kind of document the engagement as you go along. Not a big write up at the end, but record workshops, capture voice notes, photograph great whiteboarding sessions, and feed that all into an AI, so that when the consultant leaves and it's 3 or 4 months later, and someone in the client thinks, "Oh, I wish X was here. I wish I could ask him or her this." Maybe an AI engine that has got access to all of this stuff that was captured will mean that the client isn't suddenly going, "Oh, they've long gone, they've sailed off into the distance." Actually, no, we can still tap into this. We can actually go back and do that. So I think that there's another really interesting opportunity where AI can kind of help the consulting experience live on long after the humans have left. And there's even an opportunity, I think, for consulting organizations to charge for that. Because there's this is where it is still their IP that they're using. It's just not always humans in there. It started with humans, but it means that that expertise is still accessible long into the future.
Tim, let's do rapid fire questions. 30 seconds to answer each one of them.
Sure, let's do it.
Number one consulting habit you wish every team will drop this week.
Using jargon that people don't understand.
Number two, one metric that tells you instantly whether a consulting engagement is healthy or broken.
A measure that matters to the client.
3, the most overrated buzzword in transformation right now.
Agile. I love agile, but sadly it's become such a buzzword and misunderstood and misaligned. So it's a real buzzword.
4, if you could only keep AI or OKRs in your toolbox, which one stays and why?
OKRs has to stay, or the principle of OKR, something similar to it, because you cannot improve what you do not measure. You cannot improve what you do not measure, and OKRs provide a framework to do that. So if it's not OKRs, it has to be something where I'm putting measures in there to find out, and AI cannot know that without the context. So OKRs has to stay.
And number 5, what should a great consultant leave behind after they're gone?
A high-performing team. You can build software, deliver software or documents or frameworks, whatever. But if on the last day of the consulting engagement, the consultant says nothing, but the team from the client that he or she has enabled gives an amazing demo of what they've managed to do as a result of all of the help, that is just, you should be so proud of that as a consultant. And I've fortunately, I've been in that position several times where I've been so proud of the team I've left behind, because I think they're going to live on, and I was a part of creating that, and I'm very proud of that.
Or a leader who feels burnt by consulting in the past way too many times, what is the single experiment they can run in their next engagement to completely or to start changing the dynamic?
I would say try an OKR approach, even if it's just with one part, one team, and get find someone who has done this before just to help them on their way. And I think you'll find if we define the outcomes that we're all aligned and align everyone around that so we can focus on it, and then find the measures that really matter to take us towards those, it sets you off on a really good part. You can't do that right across the board in one big bang, but you can definitely start in an area. And I find that it can then really generate an infectious enthusiasm for a measurable outcome mindset. So, define the outcomes and measure what matters.
Amazing. Tim, Betty, thank you so much for being with us today. We learned a lot about the old consultancy, the new one, what's coming with product organizations. And my takeaway is that now more than ever, with so many years of consultancy already, it has to be a shared goal if we want consultancy to be successful for companies. Of course, there will be small engagement where you need services or something, but if we're talking about partnership, it has to show like that. Not only hours or number of items delivered or whatever other thing. Thank you so much for being with us, Tim.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Really enjoyed this. Thank you so much.
I have assessed over 500 executives on their productivity, and the top 10 all have something in common. They score high across 4 specific vectors: efficiency, effectiveness, ownership, and well-being. When these 4 align, you just don't lead better. You create compounding advantages that separate exceptional leaders from good ones. Take my 5-minute free assessment, and you will see exactly how you compare. Most leaders are shocked by what they discover. Find out where you stand at the link below. Thanks for listening to Productivi-Tree. I hope you found something useful in today's episode. If you did, and it helps improve your life even a tiny bit, that'll make me really happy. Remember, you can find Productivi-Tree on all major podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. If you enjoyed the show, why not share it with a friend who might also find it helpful? Until next time, and keep growing and stay productive.